The apartment smelled like mildew and defeat. Maya Torres stood at the kitchen sink of her Section 8 housing unit, water running brown before clearing, counting the days until the 15th, when her disability check would arrive. 42 years old, her back permanently damaged from a warehouse accident 3 years ago, she moved through the cramped two-bedroom with the careful deliberation of someone whose body had become an enemy. Her daughter Sophia slept in the smaller bedroom, 14 years old and growing too fast for clothes Maya could afford to replace. The girl's jeans stopped 2 inches above her ankles now, exposing mismatched socks worn thin at the heels. Her winter coat, inherited from a church donation bin, had a broken zipper Maya kept meaning to fix with a safety pin she couldn't seem to find. The living room window overlooked a parking lot where shopping carts congregated like lost cattle, abandoned by people too tired to return them properly. Maya's 2003 Camry sat in the corner spot, its check engine light, a permanent amber accusation she'd learned to ignore. The mechanic wanted $800 for repairs. She had $53 in her checking account and 17 days until the next deposit. Dawn came gray and cold through curtains that didn't quite close. Light creeping across walls, painted industrial beige by landlords who'd given up pretending anyone would stay here by choice. Maya heated water for instant coffee, the microwave beeping 3 times before she could silence it, not wanting to wake Sophia before absolutely necessary. The girl needed sleep. Needed more than Maya could provide. Needed a life that didn't involve counting pennies and calculating which bills could be paid late without triggering shutoffs. Sophia's school had called yesterday about the upcoming science camp. $175 for 3 days of outdoor education that might as well have been $1,000. Maya had promised to think about it, knowing thinking wouldn't change mathematics. The disability check was $1,200 a month. Rent took $800. Food, utilities, phone, medication, the numbers never aligned properly. Never left room for science camps, or new jeans, or fixing check engine lights that might mean the difference between getting to physical therapy appointments and missing them. She carried her coffee to the couch, its springs broken in a pattern that matched her body's habitual positions, and opened the letter that had arrived 3 days ago. She'd read it 20 times already, trying to make the words mean something different than what they said. The letterhead read Martinez and Associates, Estate Attorneys, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Her grandfather's name appeared in the first paragraph. Rafael Torres, deceased at 91, had named Maya as sole beneficiary of his personal property. Not money, not a house, not anything that might actually change her situation. Just personal property, which the attorney's letter specified meant a tool chest and its contents. Her grandfather. She'd barely known him. He'd lived in New Mexico her whole life, while she'd grown up in El Paso with her mother, who'd had complicated feelings about her father. Complicated meaning angry. Complicated meaning years of silence broken only by obligation phone calls on holidays that left everyone feeling worse. Rafael Torres had been a carpenter. She knew that much. Had worked construction his whole life, building houses for other people while living in a trailer park himself. Had never married after Maya's grandmother died young. Had been, according to Maya's mother, stubborn and proud and impossible to help. Maya's mother had died 7 years ago, liver failure from drinking that had started slow and accelerated fast. Before the end, in one of those terrible hospital room conversations nobody wants to have, she'd said things about Rafael that Maya only half understood. How he'd given everything away. How he'd let people take advantage. How he'd died with nothing because he'd never learned to hold on to what was his. And now Maya was inheriting his tool chest. The letter included a prepaid shipping label and instructions to contact the attorney within 30 days to arrange delivery. The chest was currently in storage in Albuquerque, waiting for Maya to claim it or disclaim it, though why anyone would go through the legal process of disclaiming a box of old tools was beyond her comprehension. Sophia emerged from her bedroom, hair tangled from sleep, wearing an oversized t-shirt that had been Maya's before the accident, before her body had changed in ways that made old clothes fit differently. The girl moved to the kitchen with teenager efficiency, pouring cereal without asking if they had milk because she already knew they didn't. Dry cereal eaten with a spoon while standing at the counter. Morning routine of people who'd learned not to expect more. "You look tired, Mama." Maya folded the letter, tucked it under a stack of unpaid bills on the coffee table. "I'm okay, Mija. You sleep all right?" "Yeah." Sophia ate 3 more spoonfuls before continuing. "Jessica's mum offered to pay for science camp. For me, I mean. She said she'd sponsor me, so I could go." The words hit Maya like the forklift had hit her back 3 years ago. Sudden and devastating, and changing everything in ways that would take time to fully understand. Jessica's mom, who lived in the nice part of town, whose daughter attended the same school through some boundary exception Maya had never fully understood, was offering charity, offering to expose the gap between Sophia's life and the life her classmates lived. "That's very kind of her." I told her no. Sophia's voice stayed steady. Matter of fact, a 14-year-old who'd learned to protect her mother's pride at the cost of her own opportunities. I said we had plans that week anyway. Maya's throat tightened. "Baby, if you want to go." "I don't." Sophia set her bowl in the sink, turned to face her mother with eyes too old for 14. "I'd rather stay here with you." The lie was transparent and generous, and absolutely heartbreaking. Maya opened her mouth to argue, to insist Sophia accept the offer, to sacrifice pride for her daughter's sake. But the words wouldn't come because she understood the cost of charity, the weight of owing people, the way kindness could feel like judgment wrapped in a smile. "I got a letter," Maya said instead, gesturing to the coffee table, "from your great-grandfather's attorney. He left me something." Sophia's expression shifted, curiosity breaking through the careful neutrality. "Money?" "No. Tools. A tool chest from when he worked construction." "Oh." The disappointment was visible before Sophia could hide it. "That's nice, I guess." "Yeah." Maya tried to inject enthusiasm she didn't feel. "Maybe I can sell them. Old tools, if they're good quality. Some people collect that stuff." She had no idea if that was true. Had no idea what kind of tools her grandfather had owned, or whether they'd be worth anything after sitting in storage for however long they'd been there. But the possibility, however slim, felt better than the alternative. Another reminder that her family's legacy was poverty, passing from generation to generation, with nothing to break the cycle. The letter included a phone number. Maya called it that afternoon, after Sophia left for school, her daughter walking the 1.5 miles because the bus pass had run out, and Maya kept meaning to renew it but kept not having the $30 it would cost. A woman answered on the second ring, professional and efficient. "Martinez and Associates, this is Linda." "Hi. I'm calling about a letter I received, about Rafael Torres's estate." "One moment, please." Hold music played, something instrumental and forgettable. Maya stood at her kitchen window, watching pigeons fight over spilled French fries in the parking lot. A man's voice replaced the music, older, with a slight accent that reminded Maya of her grandfather's handful of phone calls. "Miss Torres, this is Martin Martinez. I'm handling your grandfather's estate." The letter said he left me a tool chest. "Yes, that's correct. It's currently in storage here in Albuquerque. We can arrange shipping to your address in El Paso, or if you prefer to pick it up in person, That's also possible. Maya calculated the cost of gas for a round trip to Albuquerque. 4 hours each way. $40 minimum. Probably more given her car's tendency toward terrible fuel economy. Shipping would probably cost less. Can you tell me anything about it? The chest, I mean. Is it valuable? Martinez paused, the kind of silence that suggested he was choosing words carefully. Your grandfather was very specific in his will about this item. He wanted you to have it, personally. He left a note that I'm authorized to read to you if you'd like. Okay. Papers rustled. Then Martinez began reading in a tone that suggested he'd done this many times, but still treated the words with respect. To my granddaughter, Maya. I know we didn't know each other well. That's my failure, not yours. Your mother had her reasons for keeping distance, and I respected that, even when it hurt. This tool chest is everything I have left to give. It's not much, but it's yours. Use it, or sell it, or throw it away, that's your choice. But I hope you'll open it first. Look at what's inside. Understand that a man's tools tell his story. And maybe, if you're willing, you'll understand mine. With love, you probably don't remember. Abuelo Rafael. Maya felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back. Her grandfather's voice came through the attorney's reading. Words that carried weight she couldn't quite parse. A tool chest. Everything he had left. Not much, but yours. Miss Torres? Are you still there? Yeah, I'm here. Can you arrange shipping? To my address? Of course. It'll arrive within 7 to 10 business days. There's no charge. Your grandfather prepaid all associated costs. After hanging up, Maya stood at the window for a long time, trying to remember her grandfather's face and coming up with only fragments. Brown hands, scarred from work. A smile that came slowly but stayed. The smell of sawdust and coffee. Nothing substantial enough to build a full picture. Nothing that explained why he'd cared enough to prepay shipping for a box of old tools. Her sister Angela called that evening. Maya's phone lit up with the contact photo Angela at her real estate office. Professional headshot that cost $200 and showed it. Maya considered letting it go to voicemail but answered on the 4th ring, knowing avoidance only delayed the inevitable. Maya, I heard from Daniel about Abuelo's estate. Their brother, Daniel, who'd apparently heard from someone, who'd heard from someone else. Family information traveling through networks Maya didn't fully understand because she'd never been good at staying connected. It's just a tool chest, Angela. Nothing major. Still, it's something from Abuelo. We should all go through it together, you know? Family history. Maya's grip tightened on the phone. The letter said he left it to me specifically. Oh, come on. Don't be like that. We're all family. What did you say, a tool chest? Those old carpentry tools can actually be worth money if they're vintage. My real estate buddy knows a guy who collects that stuff. I could have him look at it. Get you a proper appraisal. I appreciate the offer. But, honestly, Maya, you're not exactly in a position to turn down help. When's the last time you even used tools? You can barely manage your own apartment. The observation landed like it was meant to sharp and cutting and accurate enough to hurt. Maya's apartment showed signs of deferred maintenance everywhere. The leaking faucet she couldn't fix. The loose door handle she kept meaning to tighten. The outlet cover that fell off every time Sophia plugged in her phone charger. I'm handling things fine. Angela's sigh carried through the phone clearly. You're living in Section 8 housing, Maya. You're on disability. You can't even afford to send Sophia to science camp. That's not fine. How did Angela know about science camp? Sophia must have mentioned it to her cousin, and the information had traveled the same family network that carried everything else. Maya felt exposed, her inadequacies catalogued and discussed by relatives who lived in houses with functional appliances, and children who went to camps without scholarship applications. I should go. Sophia needs help with homework. Just think about it. Okay. The tool chest. I mean, Daniel and I could drive down this weekend. We could all look through it together. Make sure nothing valuable gets accidentally donated or thrown away. You know how you are with that stuff, you don't think about resale value. Maya ended the call with promises she wouldn't keep, then sat on her broken couch and tried not to cry. Angela was right about most of it. The Section 8 housing, the disability, the science camp. But the casual way she'd said, "You know how you are cut deeper than the facts," as if Maya's poverty was personality flaw rather than circumstance. As if bad luck and workplace accidents were choices rather than things that happened to people who couldn't afford to make different decisions. Sophia emerged from her bedroom, backpack over one shoulder, confusion on her face. Who was that? Aunt Angela. She heard about Abuelo's tool chest. What did she want? Maya considered lying, protecting her daughter from family dynamics that were complicated and often cruel. But Sophia was 14, old enough to understand that love and judgment could coexist in the same phone call. She thinks we should all look through it together, make sure nothing valuable gets lost. Sophia's expression hardened in a way that made her look exactly like Maya's mother. Same stubborn set to her jaw, same flash of anger in her eyes. She thinks you can't be trusted with it. That's not. That is what she means, Mama. Aunt Angela thinks we're too poor to handle important things. She thinks we'll mess it up. The accuracy of Sophia's assessment was both impressive and devastating. 14 years old and already fluent in the language of family condescension. Already able to translate well-meaning offers into the judgment underneath. The tool chest arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Maya heard the delivery truck from inside the apartment, its backup beeper announcing arrival in the parking lot. She made it to the door as the driver unloaded a wooden crate onto a dolly, the kind of careful handling that suggested fragile contents or legal liability. "Miss Torres, I need a signature." The crate was larger than she'd expected. 4 feet long, 3 feet wide, 2 feet deep. The wood was old but solid, corners reinforced with metal brackets that had oxidized green with age. Stamps covered one side, shipping marks from decades of previous moves, traces of everywhere the chest had been before arriving here. Maya signed the electronic pad, and the driver helped her maneuver the crate through her doorway. It fit through with inches to spare, settling onto her living room floor with weight that suggested substantial contents. The driver left, and Maya stood staring at the crate, trying to decide whether she was grateful or resentful that her grandfather had thought this was meaningful inheritance. Sophia came home from school and stopped in the doorway, backpack sliding off her shoulder to hit the floor with a thump. "Whoa. Yeah. Can we open it?" Maya found a screwdriver in the kitchen drawer where random items accumulated: batteries, rubber bands, twist ties, the detritus of life lived without proper organization. The crate's lid had been secured with screws, not nails, which suggested professional packing rather than hasty storage. She worked them loose one by one, metal threads releasing from wood with resistance that spoke to how long they'd been in place. The lid lifted to reveal packing material, old newspaper wrapping something underneath. Maya pulled it away carefully, and the tool chest emerged into the afternoon light, filtering through her apartment window. It was beautiful. That was her first thought, surprising in its intensity. The chest itself was crafted from dark wood, walnut, maybe, or cherry, its surface worn smooth by decades of handling. Brass hardware had tarnished green, but remained solid, hinges and lock plate decorated with intricate etching. The corners showed dovetail joints fitted so precisely that even now, after what must have been 50 or 60 years, they held without gaps. Sophia knelt beside it, reaching out to trace the grain with one finger. Abuelo made this? I think so. He was a carpenter. The chest had 3 sections, a top compartment that lifted, and 2 drawers below. Maya opened the top first, hinges moving smoothly despite age, and found tools arranged with the kind of care that spoke to craftsman pride. Chisels nestled in custom-fitted slots, their edges still sharp, handles worn smooth by use. A hand plane, heavy and solid, its blades set at an angle that looked ready for work. Measuring tools, squares, and levels, and marking gauges, each one placed precisely. The first drawer contained saws, hand saws with different tooth patterns, coping saws, a small bow saw. Everything organized, everything maintained, everything speaking to a man who'd treated his tools like extensions of himself. The second drawer held smaller items, drill bits in graduated sizes, screwdrivers with wooden handles dark from hand oil, files and rasps, a magnifying glass, small boxes that rattled with nails and screws, sorted by type. "This is cool," Sophia whispered, and Maya heard genuine awe in her daughter's voice. "Look at how everything has its place." They spent an hour examining the contents, lifting out tools, and trying to understand their purposes. Some were obvious hammers, and wrenches needed no explanation. Others were mysterious, specialized implements whose functions Maya could only guess at. Each one showed signs of use, but also signs of care. Blades had been sharpened, maintained. Wood had been oiled. Metal had been cleaned of rust that tried to claim it. At the bottom of the second drawer, Maya found an envelope, manila, stiff with age. Her name written across the front, in handwriting she didn't recognize, but somehow knew belonged to her grandfather. She opened it carefully, aware that Sophia was watching, and found photographs inside. The first showed a young man in work clothes standing next to a house frame, 2x4s creating skeleton walls behind him. He was smiling, pride evident even through the photograph's fading. Her grandfather, maybe 30 years old, building something. The second photograph showed the same house completed. A small home, single-story, neat and well-proportioned. On the back, in the same handwriting, "First house I built, alone, 1963. More photographs followed, creating a timeline of buildings, houses, mostly, but also a church addition, a school renovation, a community center, each one documented with before and after images, each one marked with dates and locations, each one representing her grandfather's work. The final photograph showed an older Raphael, maybe 70, sitting on a porch, with a group of people Maya didn't recognize, children and adults, multiple generations, all smiling. On the back, Hernandez family, house number 43, 2009. House number 43, Sophia read over Maya's shoulder. What does that mean? Maya found a small notebook tucked beneath the photographs. Her grandfather's handwriting filled pages with dates, names, and addresses. Each entry included details, square footage, materials used, special requests, final costs. She flipped through, and the pattern became clear. Her grandfather had built houses for people, 43 of them, according to the final entry dated 2011. Not as an employee of a construction company, but as something else. The financial information told the story costs that seemed impossibly low. Notes about payment plans he'd arranged. Several entries marked paid in labor or paid in trade. One entry from 1987, Rodriguez family, 3-bedroom addition. Standard rate would be $15,000, charging $6,000, taking payment over 2 years. No interest. They have 4 kids and need space. Another from 1995, Martinez family, new construction, 1,200 square feet. Standard rate would be $45,000, charging $20,000. Payment over 3 years. Manuel, injured at work. Family needs house that accommodates wheelchair. Page after page, the same pattern. Costs that were barely above materials. Payment plans that extended for years. Notes about family's circumstances and why they needed his help. Maya's hands trembled as she read. Her mother had said Raphael gave everything away, that he'd let people take advantage. But this wasn't being taken advantage of. This was deliberate choice. This was a man who'd used his skills to help people who couldn't afford market rates, who'd built wealth for 43 families while accumulating none for himself. "Mama," Sophia's voice came soft. "Why are you crying?" Maya hadn't realized she was. Tears blurred the notebook pages, making her grandfather's careful handwriting swim. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to find words for what she was feeling. He helped people. All those years, he built houses for families who couldn't afford them otherwise. Is that why, Abuela, your mom was mad at him? Because he didn't make money? Yeah, I think so. Sophia took the notebook gently, studying entries with the seriousness she brought to schoolwork. But he did make money. He charged for the houses, just not as much as he could have. Right, but not enough to... Maya stopped, recognizing the trap in her own thinking. Not enough to what? To accumulate wealth? To retire comfortably? To leave substantial inheritance? Her grandfather had made different choices, had valued different things. Who was she to judge that? The notebook's final pages contained something different. Lists of materials and suppliers. Measurements and calculations. Blueprint, sketches, for what looked like a small workshop. Notes about zoning requirements and permit applications. The date on the last entry was 6 months before his death. Why would he be planning new construction at 90? Maya returned to the tool chest, examining it more carefully now. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, each joint perfect, each measurement precise. The kind of work that took time and skill and absolute attention to detail. The kind of work that couldn't be rushed or faked. She pressed on the wood panels experimentally, not sure what she was looking for. The sides felt solid. The back felt solid. But when she pressed the bottom of the top compartment, something shifted. Not much, just a subtle give. A sense that the wood wasn't quite resting where it should be. Sophia noticed her mother's stillness. "What is it?" "I don't know." "Hand me that screwdriver." The screwdriver revealed what felt like a seam, barely visible in the wood grain. Maya worked carefully, not wanting to damage anything, and found that what looked like the solid bottom was actually a panel-thin wood, fitted so precisely into grooves that it appeared seamless. The panel lifted out, and Maya's breath caught. Beneath it lay another compartment, hidden in the foot of space between what had appeared to be the bottom and the actual base. Documents filled it, papers wrapped in plastic, arranged in stacks that suggested organization rather than haphazard storage. Maya lifted out the first bundle with shaking hands. Bank statements from Wells Fargo, dating back to 1965. She unfolded them carefully, age-brittled pages threatening to crack, and tried to make sense of the numbers. Deposits ranging from a few hundred to a few $1,000. Steady growth over decades. The final statement, dated 2 months before her grandfather's death, showed a balance of $847,000. $847,000. Maya read the number 3 times, certain she was misunderstanding, but the numbers didn't change. Account holder, Raphael Torres. Balance, $847,000. What is that? Sophia leaned in, trying to see. Maya couldn't answer. Her mouth had stopped working. Her brain had stopped processing. $847,000. In a bank account she hadn't known existed. Left by a grandfather she'd barely known. The next bundle contained stock certificates. She didn't understand them at first, fancy paper with elaborate borders and official stamps. But Sophia, who'd somehow absorbed information from economics class that Maya had never learned, gasped. "Mama, these are Microsoft shares. And Apple. And, oh my God, how many of these are there?" 12 companies. The certificates dated from the 1,980 seconds and 1,990 seconds, purchased according to the attached documentation for prices that seemed impossibly low. Microsoft at $3 a share, Apple at $7, Amazon at $18. Maya's hands shook so badly she had to set the papers down. Her grandfather had saved money, had invested money, had accumulated wealth that her mother either hadn't known about or had chosen to believe didn't exist because acknowledging it would mean confronting her own judgment of him. More documents lay beneath. Property deeds for 3 small parcels of land in New Mexico. Certificates of deposit from various banks. A life insurance policy with Maya, listed as sole beneficiary. Value $400,000. And beneath everything, a letter. The envelope was marked in her grandfather's handwriting. For Maya, when she finds this, open last. Maya's hands trembled as she opened it. The letter inside had been written recently, the paper still crisp, the ink still dark. "My dear Maya, if you're reading this, you found my secret. Good. I built that compartment specifically to keep these documents safe, and I built it well enough that only someone who looked carefully would find it. I need to explain some things. Your mother was angry with me for many years because she believed I wasted my skills helping people who couldn't afford to pay me properly. She thought I should have charged market rates, saved money, built wealth for our family instead of giving it away to strangers. She was right and wrong. Right that I could have accumulated more if I'd been purely mercenary. Wrong that I gave it away to strangers. Those 43 families weren't strangers, they were my community. They were people who needed help, who worked hard but couldn't catch breaks that would have made their lives easier. I had skills they needed, and I had the freedom to charge less than market rate because I lived simply and didn't need much. But I also saved. Every house I built, I set aside 20% of what I charged. It didn't seem like much at the time. A few hundred here, 1,000 there. But I was patient. I invested carefully, mostly in companies whose products I understood and believed in. I lived in a trailer park and drove old trucks because I didn't need more, and because not needing more meant I could help people who needed help. The money in these accounts represents 30 years of that patience. I could have bought a bigger house, newer trucks, easier life, but I didn't need those things. What I needed was to know I'd helped people build homes where they could raise families. That's what brought me peace. I'm leaving this to you because you remind me of myself more than your mother ever did. You understand what it means to struggle. You understand what it means when people need help and systems fail them. You understand the difference between what people need and what people want. Your mother called me stubborn. She was right. I was stubborn about helping people, even when it cost me comfort. But I was also stubborn about saving, about planning, about making sure that my choice to help others didn't mean leaving my family with nothing. This inheritance is yours. The accounts, the investments, the insurance policy, everything. Use it to give Sophia opportunities you didn't have. Use it to build security you've never had. Use it to help others if you want, or keep it all for yourself. That's your choice. But I hope you'll understand why I lived the way I did, why I charged less than I could have, why I helped people your mother thought were taking advantage of me. I hope you'll see that a man can be both generous and prepared, both giving and wise. I hope you'll know that I thought of you often, even when we weren't close. I hope you'll forgive me for not being in your life the way I wanted to be. You're stronger than you know, Maya. You survived things that would have broken other people. You raised a daughter who has your strength and more. You deserve this chance. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for accepting what I'm giving you freely. With all my love, Abuelo Rafael. The letter fell from Maya's hands. Sophia picked it up, read it silently, then set it down carefully beside the bank statements and stock certificates and property deeds. They sat together on the floor of their Section 8 apartment, surrounded by evidence that their grandfather had saved more in 30 years of patient investment than most people accumulated in lifetimes. "Mama," Sophia's voice came whisper soft, "how much is all of this worth?" Maya tried to calculate, her mind struggling with numbers that exceeded her capacity to process. The bank accounts, $847,000. The life insurance, $400,000. The stock she had no idea. The online estimates she'd seen for Microsoft and Apple share prices were hundreds of dollars each. The certificates showed Raphael had purchased thousands of shares. "I don't know. A lot. Maybe millions." The word felt obscene in her mouth. Millions. Her, Maya Torres, who counted pennies for gas money and couldn't afford science camp, who lived in subsidized housing and drove a car with a check engine light she couldn't afford to fix, who'd convinced herself that her grandfather's inheritance was just old tools worth maybe a few $100s at an estate sale. What are we going to do? Maya looked at her daughter, this brave girl who'd turned down science camp to protect her mother's pride, who wore jeans that were too short and carried a backpack held together with safety pins, who'd learned to eat cereal dry because milk was expensive. This girl, who deserved better than what Maya had been able to provide. "I don't know, Mija. I really don't know." Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling where water stains mapped continents of neglect, and tried to make herself believe what she'd found was real. The tool chest sat in her living room like a physical impossibility, its hidden compartment now empty, its secrets spread across her coffee table in neat stacks she'd organized and reorganized 6 times. Bank statements, stock certificates, property deeds, insurance documents, a letter from a dead man who'd known her better from a distance than most people who claimed to love her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw numbers: 847,000 in savings, 400,000 in life insurance. Stock certificates that might be worth she'd tried to calculate, using her phone's browser, shaking hands making the math difficult, somewhere between $8 and $12 million, maybe more. The numbers were so large, they stopped meaning anything concrete and became abstract concepts her brain couldn't properly process. At 3 a.m., she got up and walked to the living room, needing to confirm the documents were still there, that she hadn't hallucinated or misread, or somehow invented hope from desperation. But they remained exactly where she'd left them, precisely stacked under the lamplight, evidence that her entire life was about to change in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Sophia appeared in her bedroom doorway, wearing the same oversized t-shirt, hair tangled from restless sleep. "You're awake too?" "Yeah, baby. Can't shut my brain off." Sophia padded across the apartment and curled up beside her mother on the couch, pulling an ancient Afghan over both of them. The blanket smelled like their old apartment, the one before the accident, before everything fell apart. Maya had carried it through 3 moves because it was one of the few things that still felt like home. "Are we rich now?" Sophia's question came matter of fact. A teenager trying to understand how the world had shifted while she slept. "I think so. I mean, we have to verify everything, get proper appraisals, talk to financial people. But yeah, if these documents are real, they're real, Mama. Abuelo wouldn't lie about this. Maya pulled her daughter closer. No, he wouldn't. Why didn't he tell you before, when you needed help? The question Maya had been asking herself for hours. Why had Raphael waited until after his death? Why had he watched her struggle, and surely he'd known she was struggling, had probably heard through whatever family networks transmitted information, without offering the help he clearly had the means to provide? The answer, she suspected, lay in the letter. Your mother was angry with me for many years. Her mother's anger had been a wall, and Maya had lived on the wrong side of it, caught between her mother's resentment and her grandfather's distance. He'd probably believed that offering help directly would cause more problems than it solved, would trigger accusations that Maya didn't need or want to manage. So instead, he'd built a puzzle box, had created an inheritance that required work to discover, that tested whether Maya would look beyond the obvious value to find what lay hidden. A carpenter's final project, designed with the same care he'd brought to building 43 houses for families who couldn't afford market rates. I think he wanted me to find it myself, to understand what he'd done before I knew about the money. Sophia considered this, her young mind working through adult complexities. So, we wouldn't think he was just giving us money because he felt sorry for us. Maybe. Or so I'd understand that he lived simply on purpose, not because he had to. That helping people and being financially secure weren't opposites. Abuela, your mom, she thought they were, right? That's why she was mad? Maya nodded against her daughter's hair. Her mother had died believing Raphael was a fool, that his generosity had been weakness, that his refusal to charge full price had been evidence of poor judgment. She'd never known about the savings, the investments, the careful planning that had let him be both generous and prepared. The irony was brutal. Her mother had resented Raphael for not building wealth, not knowing he'd been building it all along. And now Maya, her mother's daughter, would inherit what her mother had convinced herself didn't exist. What do we do first? Sophia asked. Tomorrow, I mean. Today. Whatever. Maya had been making mental lists for hours, paralyzed by the enormity of next steps. Verify the accounts. Contact the banks. Find a financial advisor. Get the stock certificates appraised. Understand tax implications. The tasks multiplied faster than she could organize them, each one requiring knowledge she didn't have and expertise she couldn't afford. Except now, she could afford it. That was the thing she couldn't quite internalize. The constraints that had governed every decision for 3 years had just evaporated. I need to call the attorney, Martinez. He'll know what to do next. And then, we see what Aunt Angela and Uncle Daniel do when they find out. Sophia's body tensed against Maya's side. They're going to be mad. Yeah, they're going to be very mad. Dawn came slowly, gray light creeping across the parking lot outside. Maya made coffee, real coffee this time instead of the instant powder she usually settled for, reckless with her last few scoops before the next grocery trip. She'd been rationing everything for so long that the simple act of making a full pot felt transgressive. Sophia got ready for school with unusual efficiency, moving through her morning routine faster than normal, clearly anxious about leaving Maya alone with the documents and the decisions that needed making. At the door, she paused, backpack over one shoulder, concern on her young face. Mama, promise me something? What? Baby, don't let them take it. Aunt Angela and Uncle Daniel. They're going to try to convince you that you can't handle this, that you need their help, that family should share. But Abuelo left it to you specifically. He wanted you to have it. The fierceness in Sophia's voice made Maya's chest ache. 14 years old and already understanding family dynamics that should have been beyond her comprehension. Already recognizing that love and greed could coexist, that concern could mask self-interest, that the people who called themselves family weren't always the people who acted like it. I promise, this is ours. I'm not giving it away. After Sophia left, Maya called Martinez and Associates. The same efficient woman answered, and this time, Maya was transferred immediately to Martin Martinez himself. Miss Torres, I was expecting your call. You received the tool chest? Yes, and I found the hidden compartment. A pause. Then Martinez's voice came warmer, almost relieved. Good. Your grandfather was very specific about that. He said you'd find it if you looked carefully, and if you didn't find it, then maybe you weren't ready for what it contained. Did you know about the money? I knew there were additional assets beyond the tool chest itself. Your grandfather worked with my firm for 20 years to structure his estate properly. Everything is legitimate, properly documented, and legally yours. Maya felt something unclench in her chest. Legitimate, properly documented, legally yours. I need help. I don't know what to do next. Of course, I've already prepared a portfolio for you, copies of everything in that compartment, plus documentation you'll need to access the accounts and transfer the stocks. I can overnight it to you, or, if you prefer to come to Albuquerque, we can meet in person. I should come there. This feels like something that needs to happen face to face. I agree. When can you travel? Maya calculated quickly. Sophia had school, but this was more important than a few days of attendance. Her disability check had arrived yesterday, which meant she had money for gas and a cheap motel. The Camry would make it if she prayed hard enough. Tomorrow. We can be there tomorrow. Excellent. I'll email you my office address and available times. Miss Torres, one more thing, have you told anyone else about what you found? Not yet. Why? Martinez's voice took on a careful quality. Your grandfather's estate is substantial. He was concerned that certain family members might contest the will or attempt to claim they were entitled to portions of the inheritance. That's why he structured everything the way he did. The tool chest was left to you explicitly in the will, which means the hidden contents are also unambiguously yours. But I'd advise discretion until all assets are properly transferred into your name. My sister already called asking about the tool chest. She wants to come look through it with me. I see. Martinez was quiet for a moment. That's your decision, of course. But if I were advising you as a friend, rather than as your attorney, I'd suggest waiting until after our meeting to share details about what you found. After hanging up, Maya stared at her phone. Her entire family dynamic was about to explode, and she was sitting at ground zero. Angela would be furious, the successful real estate agent who prided herself on financial savvy, discovering her struggling little sister had inherited millions. Daniel would feel entitled, the oldest, the son, the one who'd always assumed he'd be the family's financial anchor. They'd both helped when she'd first been injured. She had to give them that. Daniel had covered 2 months of rent while she waited for disability approval. Angela had helped with Sophia's school supplies. But the help had come with conditions, with expectations, with the implicit understanding that Maya owed them now. And when she couldn't repay them as quickly as they wanted, the help had transformed into resentment, into comments about poor judgment and bad decisions, into slowly withdrawing until she and Sophia were alone with their poverty. Now she had money, more money than Daniel or Angela would earn in their entire careers. And they would want it, would feel entitled to it, would construct justifications for why Raphael's gift should be shared, despite his explicit wishes. Maya spent the morning researching financial advisors in El Paso. trying to understand the difference between fee-only and commission-based, between fiduciary duty and sales targets. The learning curve was vertical and exhausting, every article leading to 3 more, every answer revealing 5 new questions. She was deep into an article about estate tax implications when her phone rang. Angela's contact photo filled the screen. Maya let it ring 4 times before answering, trying to settle her nerves. "Hey, Angela." "Maya, Daniel and I were talking. We want to come down this weekend to help you go through Abuelo's tools. Maybe Saturday? We can bring lunch. Make a day of it." The casual way Angela said it helped you go through as if Maya needed supervision, as if she were a child who couldn't be trusted with her own inheritance. "That's not necessary. I've already gone through everything." "Oh," Angela's voice shifted, brightness dimming. And it's what the letter said. A tool chest with his carpentry tools. "That's it? Nothing else?" Maya hated lying, but Martinez's advice echoed in her head. Discretion until assets are transferred. That's it. "Well, that's disappointing. I was hoping. I mean, it would have been nice if Abuelo had left something substantial, something that could help all of us." All of us. As if Angela, with her real estate success and her comfortable house, needed help. As if this was about family unity rather than money. "The tools are nice quality. I might be able to sell them for a few $100s. You should let me handle that. I know people who deal with estate sales. They'd give you a better price than you'd get on your own." There it was again, the assumption that Maya couldn't navigate a simple transaction without guidance. The implicit suggestion that left to her own devices, she'd make mistakes that would cost her money. "I'll think about it. Don't think too long. These things lose value if you wait. And honestly, Maya, you need the money. How's Sophia? Is she doing okay?" The shift in subject was transparent concern for Sophia, deployed as evidence that Maya's judgment was questionable, that someone needed to step in and make responsible decisions. "She's good. We're good. Are you sure? Because Daniel mentioned maybe Sophia should stay with us for a while, just until you get back on your feet. Our guest room is empty, and she'd have her own bathroom. Better school district." "No." Maya's voice came out harder than intended. "Sophia stays with me. I'm just trying to help. You're living in Section 8 housing. You're on disability. You can't even afford science camp. Maybe it's time to consider what's actually best for Sophia, instead of what's easiest for your pride." Maya's hand tightened on the phone. "My daughter is happy and healthy and doing well in school. We're fine." "Fine?" Angela's voice rose slightly. "Maya, fine isn't good enough. Sophia deserves better than fine. She deserves what Daniel and I can provide. Stability, opportunities, a real home. She has a real home. With me." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken accusations. Finally, Angela sighed, the sound calculated to convey disappointment and frustration in equal measure. "I hope you know what you're doing, for Sophia's sake." After hanging up, Maya sat motionless, trying to calm the anger and fear churning in her stomach. Angela had just threatened to pursue custody, had wrapped it in concern. But the message was clear. Give us access to Sophia, accept our help, acknowledge that you're inadequate, or we'll force the issue. Except now Maya had resources, had the means to provide stability and opportunities, had proof that she wasn't failing her daughter through neglect, but surviving circumstances that would have destroyed less determined people. She called Martinez back. "My sister is threatening to pursue custody of my daughter. She doesn't know about the money yet, but when she finds out, she'll claim you're not competent to manage it, that you need a conservator, someone to protect the assets and ensure they're used appropriately." Martinez's voice carried the weariness of someone who'd seen this pattern before. Your grandfather anticipated this. That's why he structured the trust the way he did. What trust? The documents in the hidden compartment include a trust he established 3 years ago. Everything goes into it: the bank accounts, the stocks, the insurance money, the property. You're the trustee with complete discretion over distributions. Even if someone challenged your competency, they couldn't access the trust itself. Maya felt tears of relief threaten. Raphael had seen this coming, had protected her not just with money, but with legal structures that would withstand family challenges. Had known that his gift would make her vulnerable and had built walls around it before he died. Can Angela take Sophia? Does she have grounds? Is Sophia being neglected or abused? No. She's healthy, in school, doing well. Then no. She can threaten, but threats aren't custody orders. However, I'd suggest documenting everything: Sophia's health, her school attendance, her emotional well-being. Be prepared to demonstrate that you're providing adequate care. After the call, Maya drove to Sophia's school and requested copies of her daughter's attendance records, her grades, her teacher evaluations. The secretary gave her questioning looks but complied, printing out documents that showed Sophia had missed 2 days all year, maintained a 3.8 gigapascals, and received glowing comments about her attitude and participation. Maya carried the papers to her car like weapons, like shields, like proof that poverty hadn't made her a bad mother. That living in subsidized housing didn't mean Sophia was suffering. That being on disability didn't make Maya incompetent. She stopped at a photography studio on the way home, one of those cheap chain places in a strip mall, asked the photographer to take pictures of her and Sophia together. Professional photos that showed them happy, connected, thriving. Evidence against accusations that hadn't been made yet, but were coming. Special occasion? The photographer asked, positioning them against a neutral backdrop. Yeah, Maya said, pulling Sophia close. Very special. That evening, Maya and Sophia packed for Albuquerque. 2 outfits each, toiletries, Sophia's homework so she wouldn't fall behind. Maya added the documents from the tool chest, wrapped in plastic and placed in a folder that went directly into her backpack, not trusting anything this important to checked luggage or trunk storage. They left before dawn the next morning, Maya's Camry loaded with everything they might need and nothing they didn't. The check engine light glowed amber as always, but the engine turned over on the second try, and they pulled out of the Section 8 parking lot as the sun began painting the desert sky in shades of orange and gold. The drive to Albuquerque took 5 hours through landscape that shifted from urban sprawl to desert emptiness to mountain approaches. Sophia navigated using her phone, calling out turns and calculating arrival times with the same precision she brought to math homework. They stopped once for gas and bathroom breaks at a station that looked abandoned, but had functional pumps and surprisingly clean restrooms. You nervous? Sophia asked as they merged back onto the highway. Terrified. Me too. But excited terrified. Like right before a test you studied really hard for. Maya glanced at her daughter, this remarkably resilient girl who'd learned to find positivity in situations that would have broken adults. When did you get so wise? I have a good teacher. Albuquerque appeared on the horizon like a mirage, sprawling across the desert with mountains rising behind it. Martinez's office was downtown in an older building that had been renovated with the kind of care that preserved character while updating functionality. The law firm occupied the 3rd floor, accessed through an elevator that moved slowly enough to make Maya's anxiety compound with each passing second. The receptionist was the same efficient woman who'd answered the phone. She smiled when they entered. Miss Torres, Mr. Martinez is expecting you. Would you like water? Coffee? Water would be great, thank you. Martinez's office overlooked the city, floor-to-ceiling windows, framing views of neighborhoods stretching toward mountains. He rose when they entered, a man in his 60s with silver hair and kind eyes, wearing a suit that suggested success without ostentation. "Miss Torres, Sophia, please sit." He gestured to chairs positioned around a conference table rather than across from his desk. Partnership seating, rather than adversarial positioning. "I know this must be overwhelming." "That's an understatement." Martinez smiled. "Your grandfather sat in that same chair 3 years ago and said something similar when I explained how much his investments had grown. He couldn't quite believe it himself." "Can you walk me through everything? I need to understand what I have and how it works." For the next hour, Martinez laid out the complete picture. Rafael's estate had been meticulously planned, every asset documented, every document properly filed. The bank accounts totaled $847,000 across 3 institutions, deliberately kept below FDIC insurance limits at each one. The life insurance policy would pay $400,000 upon submission of the death certificate and proper paperwork. The stock certificates were more complicated. Rafael had purchased shares in 12 companies between 1985 and 2000, investing small amounts consistently over 15 years. He'd never sold a single share, had held through crashes and recoveries, had let time and compound growth do their work. Martinez pulled out a spreadsheet. "I had a financial analyst run current valuations based on yesterday's closing prices. These numbers will fluctuate, but they give you an accurate snapshot." Maya looked at the spreadsheet, and her vision blurred. Total current value of stock holdings, $11,847,000. $11,847,000. Sophia made a small sound beside her, and Maya reached for her daughter's hand, needing physical connection to something real, while these abstract numbers tried to reorganize her understanding of the world. That's real?" "It's real. Your grandfather invested $127,000 over 15 years. Time and careful selection turned it into this. And it's all mine? All yours." He established a revocable living trust 3 years ago when he knew his health was declining. Everything goes into the trust automatically upon his death. You're the named trustee with complete discretion over distributions. The trust document explicitly states that no one else has any claim to the assets, no matter what relationship they claim to Rafael. Maya tried to process this. Why did he set it up that way? Martinez's expression grew somber. "He told me he'd watched his daughter, your mother, struggle with resentment about his choices. He'd watched his other grandchildren grow into adults who measured success purely in financial terms. He said you were different, that you'd inherited his actual values, not just his DNA. He wanted to make sure that when you received this inheritance, no one could take it from you or convince you that you didn't deserve it." Sophia squeezed Maya's hand. "Abuelo really did know you, Mama. He knew both of you. There's a letter he left with me, separate from the one in the tool chest. He wrote it a month before he died." Martinez pulled an envelope from a folder. "He asked me to read it aloud when you came to claim the estate." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Martinez opened the envelope and began reading, his voice steady and clear. "My dear Maya and Sophia, if Martin is reading this to you, it means I'm gone and you've found what I left. I'm sorry I couldn't give this to you while I was alive. I wanted to, many times. But I knew that direct help would cause problems with other family members who'd feel entitled to their share. Better to wait until I was beyond their reach, beyond their arguments, beyond their ability to make you feel guilty for accepting what I'm giving freely. Maya, you've survived things I only heard about through family whispers. Your accident, your divorce, your struggles, I knew about all of it. and it broke my heart that I couldn't help openly. But I also saw your strength, saw how you protected Sophia, how you maintained her stability even when yours was crumbling. That takes the kind of courage most people never develop. Sophia, you don't remember me, but I remember you. I saw you twice when you were very young. Before your grandmother, my daughter, decided I wasn't welcome in your lives. You were bright and curious and kind even then. I've followed your progress from a distance, and I'm proud of who you're becoming. This money represents 30 years of patience, of living below my means so I could help people who needed help, of investing small amounts consistently even when it seemed pointless, of believing that someday it would matter. Use it wisely, not cautiously wisely. Don't let fear of making mistakes prevent you from making choices. Don't let others convince you that having money means you're obligated to share it with people who never helped you when you needed help. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who shows up when things get hard. I showed up late, I know, but I showed up with everything I had. Make of it what you will. With all my love, Abuelo Rafael. Martinez set the letter down carefully. Maya was crying openly now, and Sophia wasn't far behind. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, honoring the weight of Rafael's words and the gift he'd spent decades building. Finally, Martinez spoke. There's more. Rafael owned 3 small parcels of land in New Mexico. Nothing dramatic, just pieces he bought at county auctions over the years. Total value is probably around $180,000. There's also the trailer he lived in, which is worth maybe $25,000. All of it goes to you. So the total estate is. Martinez consulted his spreadsheet. Approximately $13.3 million. Give or take, fluctuations in stock values. 13 million. The number was so large it stopped meaning anything. Maya tried to relate it to her lived experience. Her $1,200 monthly disability check, her rent of $800, the $53 in her checking account. 13 million was 901 years of disability payments, 16,625 months of rent, 245,283 times her current bank balance. It was impossible. It was real. It was hers. What do I do now? Martinez smiled. First, we transfer everything into your name. I've prepared all the paperwork you just need to sign. Then I'd suggest finding a good financial advisor, someone who can help you understand your options. You don't have to make any big decisions immediately. The money isn't going anywhere. They spent the next 2 hours signing documents. Forms for banks, forms for insurance companies, forms for stock transfers. Forms that would make Maya Torres the legal owner of assets she'd never imagined possessing. Sophia sat beside her the whole time, reading each document before her mother signed it, asking questions that suggested she understood more about financial matters than Maya did. When it was done, Martinez handed Maya a folder thick with copies of everything they'd signed. Keep these somewhere safe. I'd also recommend getting a safe deposit box for the original documents once everything is fully processed. How long until the transfer's complete? The bank accounts should be accessible within a week. Insurance money will take 30 to 60 days. Stock transfers can take up to 90 days. But I'll push to expedite. In the meantime, you have enough cash to handle immediate needs. Maya thought about her checking account balance of $53, her maxed-out credit cards, her car's check engine light. Can I access some of the bank account money right away? I need to. She trailed off, unsure how to explain that she needed to pay bills, fix her car, buy Sophia clothes that fit. That $13 million wouldn't feel real until she could do simple things like fill her gas tank without calculating whether she had enough left over for food. Of course, I'll call the banks this afternoon and authorize immediate access for you. You should be able to withdraw funds by tomorrow. Walking out of Martinez's office, Maya felt untethered from reality. They'd entered as poor people, pretending they could handle a trip to Albuquerque. They were leaving as wealthy people who hadn't yet learned to think of themselves that way. In the parking lot, Sophia stopped and turned to her mother. "What do we do now?" Maya looked at the Camry with its check engine light and worn tires, looked at her daughter in jeans that were too short and a coat with a broken zipper, looked at herself, 42 years old, finally catching the break she'd stopped believing would come. Now we get your coat fixed, and buy you jeans that actually fit, and fix the car, and find somewhere decent to sleep tonight, instead of trying to drive back in the dark. Sophia's smile was brilliant. "We can afford that now?" "Baby, we can afford so much more than that, but we're starting with the basics, because Abuelo spent 30 years being patient, and I think we should honor that by being smart about this." They found a motel that was clean without being expensive, with a pool Sophia was too excited to use, and cable TV they watched without really seeing. Maya ordered real pizza from a place that delivered, not frozen rectangles heated in a broken microwave. They ate on actual plates instead of paper towels and didn't worry about whether there'd be enough for tomorrow. That night, after Sophia fell asleep in one of the two beds, Maya sat by the window and looked out at Albuquerque's lights spreading across the desert. Tomorrow, they'd go home. Tomorrow, she'd start the process of figuring out what wealthy meant. Tomorrow, her family would find out, and the real battle would begin. But tonight, for this one night, she let herself feel what her grandfather had given her. Not just money, not just security, but choice. The ability to decide what came next, instead of having it decided by circumstances beyond her control. She pulled out her phone and found the last photo of Raphael in her gallery, a picture from her father's funeral 6 years ago. Raphael, standing alone in the back of the church, old and stern, and utterly alone. She'd barely recognized him then, had been too consumed by grief to approach him, to thank him for coming, to know him before it was too late. "I understand now, Abuelo," she whispered to the photograph. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for believing I'd be strong enough to handle this. I won't let you down." And there, in a motel room in Albuquerque, with her daughter sleeping peacefully and $13 million in paperwork on the table beside her, Maya Torres finally allowed herself to believe that things were about to change, that the struggle was ending, that her grandfather's patient gift would let her build the life he'd always known she deserved. Tomorrow would bring complications, but tonight brought peace. The drive back to El Paso felt different. Same highway, same desert landscape, same Camry with its persistent check engine light. But Maya sat straighter behind the wheel, and Sophia navigated with a confidence that came from knowing their destination mattered in ways it hadn't before. They stopped at a Target outside of Las Cruces. Maya parked in a spot that wasn't the furthest from the entrance for the first time in 3 years, and they walked through automatic doors into fluorescent brightness that felt almost celebratory. "Get what you need," Maya told Sophia. "Real winter coat, jeans that fit, new shoes if yours are getting tight." Sophia stood frozen in the entrance, overwhelmed by permission she'd never been granted. "How much can I spend?" Maya did math in her head, $847,000 in accessible bank accounts, minus the money she'd need for immediate bills and car repairs. Even being conservative, she had hundreds of thousands of dollars available. A winter coat cost maybe $60. Good jeans, another $40. Shoes, $50. Don't worry about it. Get what you need. They spent an hour in the store, Sophia trying on clothes with the focused seriousness of someone who'd learned to make things last. She chose practical items, a puffy winter coat in navy blue, 3 pairs of jeans, 2 sweaters, new sneakers that didn't have holes forming in the canvas. Nothing frivolous, nothing that screamed wealth. Just the basics she'd been missing. At the checkout, the total came to $287.42. Maya's hand trembled slightly as she inserted her debit card, the same account that had held $53 yesterday, that Martinez had called the bank about this morning. The transaction approved immediately, and Maya felt something release in her chest that had been clenched tight for 3 years. "You okay, Mama?" Sophia asked as they loaded bags into the car. "Yeah, baby. This is going to take some getting used to." They changed in the Target bathroom, Sophia into new jeans and her coat with the working zipper, Maya into a sweater she'd grabbed impulsively that actually fit properly, instead of hanging loose from weight she'd lost and couldn't afford to regain. They left their old clothes folded in the shopping bags, symbolic shedding of poverty's uniform. The Camry's check engine light still glowed, so Maya pulled into a repair shop recommended by Target's parking lot attendant. A mechanic named Roberto came out, wiping grease-stained hands on a rag that had once been red but was now mostly brown. "What can I do for you?" "Check engine light's been on for 6 months. I need to know what it'll cost to fix." Roberto plugged a diagnostic tool into the port under the dashboard, studied the readout, and frowned. "You've been driving like this for 6 months? Couldn't afford repairs. Lady, this is your oxygen sensor, your catalytic converter, and your transmission slipping. You're looking at about $2,200 to fix it properly. Maybe $1,800 if you go with aftermarket parts." Maya's old instinct was to thank him, say she'd think about it, drive away with the problem unresolved. But her new reality meant different choices. "Can you do it today?" Roberto looked surprised. "I can have it done by closing time if you don't mind waiting. You got somewhere to be?" "We'll find somewhere. Just fix it properly. Don't cut corners." They walked to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, spent 4 hours with laptops borrowed from the public library branch next door, researching financial advisors and trust management and tax implications of sudden wealth. Sophia took notes in her school notebook, creating lists of questions they'd need answered, organizing information Maya's overwhelmed brain couldn't hold. "We should talk to 3 different advisors before choosing one," Sophia said, reading from an article about due diligence. "Make sure they're fiduciaries, which means they have to act in our best interest. Check their credentials and references." Maya looked at her 14-year-old daughter, this person who'd somehow absorbed financial literacy through osmosis and necessity. "When did you learn all this?" "Economics class. And watching you try to make impossible math work for 3 years. Sophia's voice went quiet. "I paid attention to what we needed, but couldn't have. Now, we have it, so I want to make sure we don't lose it." Roberto called at 5:30. "Your car's ready. Drives like new, like new for a 2003. That'll be $2,187.50. Maya paid with her debit card, watching the transaction process without the spike of anxiety that had accompanied every purchase for years. The Camry started smoothly, check engine light finally dark, engine running with a steadiness that felt symbolic of larger changes. They reached El Paso as the sun set, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple that Maya had stopped noticing somewhere along the way to survival. Their Section 8 apartment complex looked exactly the same, peeling paint, shopping carts in the parking lot, the ambient sense of temporary existence. But Maya saw it differently now, not as failure, but as a place she'd survived, a chapter ending rather than a permanent condition. Inside, the tool chest sat where they'd left it, its hidden compartment now empty, but its significance magnified. Maya ran her hands over the dovetail joints, the brass hardware, the wood worn smooth by her grandfather's hands. This object had carried her inheritance literally and metaphorically, had contained wealth while looking like simple craftsmanship, had tested whether she'd look deeper than the obvious. "What do we do with it?" Sophia asked. "The chest, I mean. Now that we've taken everything out." "We keep it. Put it somewhere prominent. Remember that things aren't always what they appear to be." Her phone rang, Angela's name flashing across the screen. Maya let it ring twice before answering, steeling herself for the conversation she'd been avoiding. "Hey, Angela." "Maya, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day. Where have you been?" "Albuquerque. Had to meet with Abuelo's attorney about the estate." A pause. Then Angela's voice sharpened. "The attorney? For a tool chest? That seems excessive. There was paperwork to sign." "What kind of paperwork?" Maya took a breath, feeling Sophia's encouraging presence beside her. Martinez had said discretion until assets transferred, but the transfers had started. The banks knew. The insurance company knew. Soon everyone would know. "Angela, I need to tell you something." The tool chest had a hidden compartment. Abuelo left documents inside. Bank accounts, stock certificates, insurance policies. He'd been saving and investing for 30 years. Silence. Complete silence that stretched so long Maya checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. Finally, "How much?" "Around $13 million. The silence that followed was different, pregnant with shock and rage, and calculations happening at speeds Maya could almost hear through the phone. "13 million. Angela's voice came out strangled. Abuelo had $13 million and lived in a trailer park. He chose to live simply so he could help people who needed help. He charged less than market rate for the houses he built, but he saved carefully from what he did charge. And he left it all to you. Not a question. An accusation. Yes, the will is very specific. There's a trust, and I'm the sole beneficiary." "That's not fair." Angela's voice rose. "We're family too. Daniel and I helped you after your accident. We deserve—" "You deserve what, exactly?" Maya's voice hardened. "You helped for 2 months, then spent 2 years making me feel like I owed you for the rest of my life. You took every opportunity to remind me I was failing, that I couldn't handle my own life, that Sophia would be better off with you. We were concerned. You were living in Section 8 housing, for God's sake, and you were living in your nice house, telling yourself that my poverty proved something about my character, instead of something about my circumstances. So now you're rich, and suddenly you don't need family anymore? That's really mature, Maya." Sophia reached for her mother's free hand, squeezing support and solidarity into that connection. Maya squeezed back. "I'm not saying I don't need family. I'm saying that money doesn't change who was there when things were hard and who wasn't. Abuelo left this to me because he knew you'd react exactly like you're reacting right now. This is ridiculous. I'm calling Daniel. We're getting a lawyer." Abuelo wasn't in his right mind. No mentally competent person leaves $13 million to one grandchild, while excluding the others. He was evaluated by multiple doctors. Angela. The trust was established 3 years ago with full legal oversight. You won't win this. We'll see about that. The call ended abruptly. Maya set her phone down and looked at Sophia, whose young face showed anger and hurt in equal measure. She didn't even ask how we were doing. Didn't ask about me or you or whether we're okay. Just went straight to the money. "Yeah, she did. Are they going to take it? Aunt Angela and Uncle Daniel?" Maya pulled her daughter close, feeling protective fierceness rise up. "No." Abuelo made sure they couldn't. The trust is ironclad. But they're going to make our lives difficult while they try. The difficult started the next morning. Maya woke to 17 missed calls, 8 from Angela, 6 from Daniel, 3 from numbers she didn't recognize. Voicemails ranged from concerned to angry to threatening, a spectrum of family dysfunction playing out through phone messages. Daniel's voice came through cold and certain. Maya, this is absurd. Abuelo clearly wasn't thinking straight when he made these arrangements. We need to contest the will on the grounds of undue influence. You obviously manipulated him somehow. Call me back. Angela's messages escalated from fake sweetness to barely contained rage. We need to talk about fair distribution. Family takes care of family, Maya. Don't be selfish about this. You can't seriously think it's appropriate to keep everything while your siblings struggle. Fine. Don't answer. You'll hear from our lawyer. The unknown numbers were attorneys 3 different law firms, all calling on behalf of Angela and Daniel, all requesting copies of the will and trust documents, all making vague threats about legal action if Maya didn't cooperate with their investigation. Sophia heard the voicemails playing from the kitchen, where she was making breakfast with newly purchased ingredients. Actual eggs, actual bread that wasn't stale, actual butter. Her face darkened with each message. They're horrible. They're scared. Money makes people show who they really are, and sometimes who they really are isn't pretty. Maya called Martinez while Sophia got ready for school. He listened to her summary of the calls without interruption, then sighed the deep sigh of someone who'd seen this exact pattern before. They'll file a complaint, probably claim undue influence, lack of mental capacity, fraud, whatever their lawyers think might stick. It won't work, but it'll be unpleasant while it's happening. How unpleasant? Depositions, court hearings. Your financial history will be examined. They'll try to prove you're not competent to manage the estate, that you manipulated your grandfather, that the trust should be invalidated. It's all performative. No judge will overturn a properly executed trust just because other family members are mad about being excluded. But the performance itself is designed to pressure you into settling. Settling means giving them money. Usually, they'll propose some percentage split, claim it's fair, threaten to drag things out for years if you don't agree. Most people settle just to make it stop. Maya thought about Angela's comfortable house, Daniel's successful business, their comfortable lives that had never included sleeping in cars or choosing between food and medication. Thought about how they'd disappeared when she needed help, but materialized immediately when there was money to claim. I'm not settling. Abuelo left this to me specifically because he knew they'd do exactly what they're doing. Giving them money would invalidate everything he worked for. Good. Then we fight. I'll need you to document everything: their calls, their messages, any interactions you've had with them over the past few years. Particularly anything that shows they weren't helping you when you were struggling. Maya thought about the text messages she'd saved, begging for help with rent, asking if Daniel could loan her money for Sophia's school supplies, requesting the repayment they'd promised when she'd helped them after their father's death. Thought about the responses: mostly silence, occasionally excuses, never actual help. I have documentation. Excellent. Send it all to me. And Maya, this is going to get worse before it gets better. They'll try to turn other family members against you, claim you're being greedy, paint themselves as victims. Are you prepared for that? I don't have much other family left. Most of them sided with my ex-husband after the divorce, decided I was the problem because I wouldn't just accept the abuse quietly. Then you've already survived worse than what's coming. These are just lawyers and legal threats. You've survived actual threats. You'll survive this. Sophia's school was 5 blocks from their apartment, close enough that she usually walked. But today, Maya drove her, wanting those extra minutes together, sensing her daughter needed reassurance that the ground beneath them was solid despite family earthquakes. "Are we going to move?" Sophia asked as they pulled up to the school's drop-off zone. "Out of our apartment, I mean." Maya hadn't thought that far ahead, too focused on immediate crises to consider longer-term changes. "Do you want to?" I don't know. It's not great, but it's ours. And if we move somewhere nice, people will know we have money. Kids at school will treat me different." The wisdom in that observation made Maya's chest ache. Sophia understood instinctively what Maya was still learning, that wealth changed everything, including how people saw you. That the girl who'd eaten dry cereal and worn too short jeans would be treated differently than the girl whose mother suddenly had $13 million. "We don't have to decide right now. We can stay here as long as you want, or we can find something else. It's up to us now." That's what Abuelo gave us. Choices. Sophia grabbed her backpack, new and sturdy, replacing the one held together with safety pins. "Mama, I'm proud of you, for not giving them the money, for standing up to Aunt Angela. I'm proud of you too, baby, for being braver than I was at 14, for understanding things you shouldn't have to understand yet." After dropping Sophia off, Maya drove to a different part of El Paso, the part where financial advisors had offices in buildings with actual security and maintained landscaping. She had appointments with 3 different firms, interviews, really, to see who understood her situation and who just saw dollar signs. The first advisor was a man in his 50s who spent 30 minutes explaining why Maya should invest in a complex portfolio of hedge funds he happened to manage. His presentation was polished, his projections impressive, his interest in her actual needs non-existent. The second was a woman in her 40s who asked more questions than she answered, who wanted to understand what Maya valued and what kept her awake at night. But her fee structure was based on assets under management, which meant she'd profit more from Maya's wealth than from Maya's well-being. The third was a man named David Chen, early 60s, whose office was smaller than the others and whose presentation consisted mostly of listening. He let Maya talk for 45 minutes about the tool chest, about Raphael's choices, about wanting to honor her grandfather's legacy while building security for Sophia. "So you want to preserve the wealth while using some of it to create stability," David summarized when she finished. "And you're worried that having this much money will change who you are." "Yes, exactly that. Then we structure things carefully. Living expenses in one account enough that you're comfortable, but not so much that spending becomes mindless. Investments in another account that you don't touch except for true emergencies. Trust fund for Sophia's education and future. Charitable giving, if you want to continue your grandfather's pattern of helping people." Can I afford to be charitable with 13 million? I mean, it sounds like a lot, but I don't know how far it actually goes. David smiled. "Miss Torres, if you're careful, and I think you will be $13 million, will generate approximately $400,000 to $500,000 in investment returns annually. You could live on $200,000 a year, which is very comfortable. Set aside another $100,000 for Sophia's future, and still have $100,000 or more for charitable giving, and your principal would continue growing." The numbers were abstract, but the concept wasn't. She could live comfortably, secure her daughter's future, help others, and the money would increase rather than depleting. Raphael's gift wasn't just $13 million, it was financial perpetuity if she didn't squander it. "My siblings are going to sue me. They're claiming I manipulated my grandfather, or that he wasn't mentally competent. Do they have grounds? No. The trust was properly executed. Raphael was evaluated by doctors. Everything was done correctly. Then you'll win, and the legal fees will be annoying but not devastating. You can afford good representation now." That's part of what this money gives you, the ability to defend what's yours without being bankrupted by the process. Maya hired David Chen that afternoon, signing contracts that made him her fiduciary advisor, legally obligated to act in her interests rather than his own. He set up accounts, arranged transfers, created a structure that would protect her from both external threats and her own potential impulses, to give money away to people who'd never helped her. The legal documents arrived 5 days later, delivered by process server to her apartment door. Petition to contest the validity of Rafael Torres's trust, filed by Angela Hayes and Daniel Torres, claiming undue influence, lack of mental capacity, and fraud. They were requesting the trust be dissolved and the assets distributed equally among all grandchildren. Maya read through the complaint in her living room, Sophia looking over her shoulder, both of them parsing legal language that was designed to make Maya seem manipulative and Rafael seem incompetent. The petition painted a picture of an elderly man taken advantage of by a desperate granddaughter who'd wormed her way into his affections for financial gain. "This is such bullshit," Sophia said, then looked apologetic. "Sorry, but it is." "No, you're right. It absolutely is." Maya called Martinez, who'd been expecting this. "I'll file our response. We'll need your deposition. They'll ask you questions under oath about your relationship with Rafael, your financial situation, any contact you had with him before his death. Answer truthfully. Don't speculate. Don't get emotional, even though they'll try to provoke you." "When?" "Probably in the next month. I'll prepare you." "Maya, one more thing, they're going to make this public. Court documents are public record. Media might pick up the story. Poor single mother inherits millions, while siblings claim fraud, makes compelling headlines." "Wonderful. It'll be uncomfortable, but it also works in our favor. Public opinion tends to side with the person who has less, and you very clearly had less when Rafael made his will. The optics of successful siblings suing their disabled sister over their grandfather's money aren't great for them." The media attention started with a local news story that somehow got picked up regionally, then nationally. Family fight over $13 million tool chest inheritance. The article included Maya's photo, a shot taken from her Facebook account that showed her at her thinnest, most exhausted, during the worst of her homelessness. Angela and Daniel were quoted extensively about their concerns. "We just want to make sure our grandfather's wishes are honored," Angela told the reporter, managing to sound concerned rather than greedy. "Maya's been through a lot, and we worry she's not equipped to handle this kind of wealth. We're not trying to take anything from her, we just think the estate should be distributed fairly among all of Rafael's grandchildren." The comments section exploded with opinions, strangers weighing in on Maya's worthiness, on Rafael's choices, on what constituted fair. Half the commenters sided with Angela and Daniel, wealthy people thinking 13 million should be shared. The other half saw through the performance people who'd experienced poverty, recognizing that Maya's siblings had been absent when she needed help, but present when there was money to claim. Sophia found the article during her lunch period at school, reading it on her phone while her classmates discussed whether it was true. By the time Maya picked her up that afternoon, Sophia's face was set in hard lines that made her look older than 14. People at school were talking about it. Jessica's mom saw the news story. "I'm sorry, baby. I wish this wasn't happening publicly. It's not your fault. And you know what? Most of the kids sided with you. They said if Aunt Angela and Uncle Daniel really cared, they would have helped when we were living in the car. That showing up for money but not for actual help makes them terrible people." Maya felt tears threaten not from sadness, but from the fierce loyalty of teenagers who understood injustice when they saw it. "Your friends are good people. They learned from watching you be a good person even when it was hard. The deposition took place on a Wednesday morning, in a conference room that smelled like old coffee and air conditioning. Angela and Daniel sat on one side with their attorney, a man named Harrison Webb, who looked like he charged $500 an hour to intimidate people. Maya sat on the other side with Martinez, trying to project calm she didn't feel. Webb started gently, establishing Maya's background, her employment history, her accident, and disability. Then he shifted. "Miss Torres, when was the last time you spoke with your grandfather before his death?" Maya had prepared for this. "Maybe 10 years ago, at a family reunion." 10 years. And you're claiming he left you $13 million despite not having contact with you for a decade? "I'm not claiming anything. The trust documents speak for themselves. Isn't it true that you contacted him multiple times in the months before his death?" "No, that's not true. We have phone records showing 3 calls from your number to his trailer park's community phone." Maya's mind raced. Then clarity hit. Those calls were to the community center, asking if they had wheelchair ramps, because I was researching accessibility for my own housing search. I didn't know my grandfather lived there. The calls weren't to him. Webb's expression showed he'd expected her to deny the calls entirely, not to have a reasonable explanation. He pivoted. "You were homeless at the time of your grandfather's death." "I was living in subsidized housing, not homeless." "But you had been homeless previously?" "I lived in my car for 3 months while waiting for housing assistance." "And you're claiming that despite this desperate financial situation, you didn't reach out to your wealthy grandfather for help?" "I didn't know he was wealthy. No one in the family knew." Angela made a scoffing sound that her attorney quieted with a look. Webb continued. "Your mother was estranged from Raphael. They had a difficult relationship. My mother felt he made poor financial choices. Poor financial choices that resulted in $13 million. She didn't know about that. None of us did." Webb pulled out documents Raphael's notebook, with its 43 house entries, the detailed accounts of charging below market rates. "Your grandfather essentially gave away hundreds of thousands of dollars, correct? He charged fair rates to people who couldn't afford market prices. That's not giving away money, that's choosing to earn less in order to help more. A distinction without a difference. He could have been much wealthier if he'd charged appropriate rates. Or he could have been exactly as wealthy as he wanted to be, which was wealthy enough to help people, and wealthy enough to leave a substantial inheritance to someone he believed deserved it." The deposition continued for 3 hours. Webb probed every aspect of Maya's life: her marriage, her divorce, her accident, her finances. He tried to paint her as desperate enough to manipulate an elderly man, unstable enough to mismanage an estate, unworthy of the gift she'd received. Martinez objected frequently, protecting Maya from the worst questions. But even the permitted questions felt like attacks, designed to make her doubt herself, to make her feel like accepting Raphael's gift was somehow wrong. When it finally ended, Maya felt exhausted and violated. Martinez walked her to her car in the parking garage, his hand on her shoulder. "You did well. Better than well. You were calm, clear, honest. Webb was fishing for anything he could use, and you didn't give him anything." It felt awful. Of course it did. That's the point. They're trying to make you uncomfortable enough that you settle. But Maya, you held your ground. That matters. The court hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In the interim, Maya's life split into 2 parallel realities. One reality involved adapting to wealth, moving to a modest 3-bedroom house in a safe neighborhood, enrolling Sophia in a better school, buying a reliable car to replace the Camry. The other reality involved defending that wealth against family members who believed they deserved it more. The house Maya bought wasn't extravagant. 1,200 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small yard. It cost $220,000, which David Chen assured her was well within reasonable limits. But compared to the Section 8 apartment, it felt palatial. Sophia's new school was everything the old one wasn't. Adequate funding, involved teachers, students whose biggest worry wasn't whether they'd have lunch. Sophia adapted quickly, making friends who invited her to houses where homelessness was a concept rather than a lived experience. Maya started physical therapy for her back. Real therapy with a specialist who didn't just prescribe medication, but actually worked to improve her condition. After 3 months, her pain decreased noticeably. After 6 months, she could do things she'd thought were permanently lost. Carry groceries without agony. Sit through Sophia's school events without having to stand and stretch repeatedly. Sleep through the night without waking from muscle spasms. She also started volunteering at a women's shelter, the same one where Sister Maria had helped her during the worst times. Maya funded a new wing that would house 12 more families, then started a job training program focused on skills that paid well: medical coding, paralegal certification, IT support. "You're doing what Raphael did," David observed during one of their quarterly review meetings. "Charging below market rate, or in your case, charging nothing to help people who need help. Is that bad financial planning? Not if it's sustainable. You're spending about $200,000 a year on living expenses and charitable giving combined. Your investments generated $480,000 last year. You're actually accumulating wealth faster than you're spending it." The math still felt impossible, that spending $200,000 annually somehow meant getting richer. But the numbers didn't lie, and David had no reason to mislead her. The court hearing arrived on a Tuesday morning that dawned cold and clear. Maya dressed carefully, professional, but not expensive. Respectful of the court, but not trying to hide her new circumstances. Sophia insisted on coming, missing school to support her mother, and Maya didn't have the heart to refuse. The courtroom was smaller than Maya expected, wood-paneled and formal. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding with the weary authority of someone who'd seen too many family disputes. Angela and Daniel sat with Harrison Webb, their faces arranged in expressions of concern that didn't reach their eyes. Maya sat with Martinez, Sophia on her other side, forming their own small army. Webb presented his case first, arguing that Raphael had been mentally diminished, that the trust was the product of undue influence, that fairness required equal distribution among all grandchildren. He called a medical expert who testified that 91-year-olds frequently experienced cognitive decline. He called Angela, who cried on the stand while describing how much she loved her grandfather and how hurt she was that Maya had manipulated him. "We just want what's fair," Angela said, tears streaming down her face in a performance that would have been impressive if it wasn't so transparent. "We all loved Abuelo. We all deserve to share in what he left." Then it was Martinez's turn. He called the doctors who'd evaluated Raphael 3 years ago when the trust was established, all of whom testified that Raphael had been sharp, clear, completely competent. He presented Raphael's notebooks with their meticulous documentation of 30 years of financial planning. He showed the video recording Raphael had made explaining exactly why he was leaving everything to Maya, his voice steady and certain as he described watching his grandchildren grow and deciding who deserved his legacy. "I'm leaving this to Maya because she understands what it means to struggle," Raphael said on the video, his face filling the courtroom screen. "Because she protected her daughter when everything else fell apart. Because she survived things that would have destroyed other people. Angela and Daniel had advantages Maya never had, and they used those advantages well. They don't need this money. Maya does. And more importantly, Maya will use it the way I used mine, to help people, to build security, to create opportunity. The courtroom was silent when the video ended. Angela's face had gone white, her tears dried, her performance shattered by her grandfather's own words. Martinez called Maya to the stand. She answered questions about her relationship with Rafael, about the tool chest, about finding the hidden compartment. She described living in her car, working retail, despite chronic pain, choosing which bills to pay and which to let slide. "Did you manipulate your grandfather?" Martinez asked. "No, I barely knew him. I wish I'd known him better." "Did you know about the money before you received the tool chest?" "No, I thought I was inheriting old tools worth maybe a few $100s. What did you do when you found the documents?" I cried. Then I called his attorney to make sure it was real. Then I tried to understand why he thought I deserved this. "And what did you conclude?" Maya looked at the judge, at Sophia beside her, at Angela and Daniel across the aisle. "I concluded that my grandfather saw me more clearly from a distance than my siblings saw me up close. That he understood struggle because he'd chosen to help people who were struggling. That he wanted his money to go to someone who'd use it wisely, but also kindly. I hope I'm proving him right." Judge Morrison called a recess, then returned with a decision delivered in tones that suggested she'd seen this exact case too many times. "I've reviewed the evidence extensively. The trust document is legally sound, properly executed, with clear evidence of testamentary capacity. Mr. Torres was evaluated by multiple physicians who found him completely competent. The video recording demonstrates his explicit wishes and his reasoning for those wishes. Furthermore," she continued, looking directly at Angela and Daniel, "the evidence shows that petitioners were not involved in Miss Maya Torres's life during her period of greatest need. They did not provide assistance when she was homeless or living in subsidized housing. They did not offer help when she was raising a child on disability income. They appeared only after they learned about the size of the inheritance. This court finds no evidence of undue influence, fraud, or incapacity. The trust stands as written. Rafael Torres had the absolute right to dispose of his property as he saw fit, and he did so with clear intent and sound mind. Petition dismissed. Petitioners are ordered to pay respondents' legal fees." The gavel came down with finality that echoed through the courtroom. Angela made a choking sound. Daniel's face flushed dark red. Webb gathered his papers with the efficient movements of someone cutting his losses. Maya felt Sophia's hand find hers, squeezing triumph and relief into that connection. Martinez leaned close. "It's over. You won." Outside the courthouse, media had gathered local news crews who'd been following the story. Maya let Martinez handle most of it, but one reporter asked a question she felt compelled to answer. "Miss Torres, how do you feel about your siblings now?" Maya thought about Angela's tears on the stand, Daniel's fury during depositions, the months of legal harassment designed to make her give up money that was rightfully hers. "I feel sad for them. My grandfather tried to teach us something about value and worth and what matters. They didn't learn it. Maybe someday they will." "Will you share any of the inheritance with them?" "No. Not because I'm cruel, but because giving them money would invalidate everything my grandfather believed about who deserved his legacy. He made his choice. I'm honoring it." The story that ran that evening focused on those words, Maya's refusal to share, presented as either admirable principle or cold-hearted greed, depending on which network you watched. But Maya didn't care about media interpretation. She cared about the judge's ruling, about the legal protection that meant Sophia's future was secure, about honoring Rafael's trust in ways that went beyond just managing money. That night, In their house, with its 3 bedrooms and working appliances and yard where nothing dangerous accumulated, Maya and Sophia sat together on a couch they'd chosen together. The tool chest sat in the corner of the living room. Displayed on a table, Martinez had helped her find a place of honor for the object that had changed everything. "What do you think Abuelo would say if he could see us now?" Sophia asked. Maya studied the tool chest, its dovetail joints and brass hardware, its hidden compartment now empty but still significant. "I think he'd say we did exactly what he hoped we'd do. That we found what he left, understood why he left it, and used it wisely." "Are you happy, Mama?" The question was more complex than it seemed. Maya's back still hurt sometimes. She still woke up in the middle of the night, worried about money, then remembered she didn't have to worry anymore. She still saw the Camry's check engine light in her dreams, even though the car was fixed and replaced. But she also woke up in a house she owned, watched Sophia thrive in a good school, volunteered at the shelter, helping women who were exactly where she'd been 3 years ago, managed wealth that kept growing despite her using it to help others. "Yeah, baby, I'm really happy. Not perfect happy, not without problems happy, but the kind of happy where I know we're going to be okay, whatever comes next." Sophia leaned against her mother's shoulder. "Abuelo was right about you. You deserved this." 2 years after the tool chest arrived, Maya stood in the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new women's center she'd funded. 40 beds, job training programs, childcare for mothers trying to get back on their feet. The building was named the Rafael Torres Center for Family Independence. A plaque by the entrance explaining that Rafael had spent 43 years helping families build homes, and now his legacy would help families build futures. Sister Maria stood beside her, 72 years old now but still sharp. "He'd be proud of you." "I hope so." "No hope needed. You took what he gave you and multiplied it. Not just financially, though David tells me your investments are doing well, but in impact. How many families have you helped so far?" Maya had kept count, the way Raphael had kept count of his 43 houses. 117. That's more than doubling his work. That's honoring it. There's a difference. Sophia appeared from inside the center, now 16, and volunteering in the job training program. She'd grown into the kind of young woman who understood both privilege and responsibility, who knew her opportunities came from her great-grandfather's sacrifice and her mother's strength. "Mama, there's someone here who wants to meet you." The woman was maybe 30, thin in a way that spoke of missing meals, nervous in a way Maya recognized from mirrors during her worst times. She held a little boy's hand, maybe 5 years old, wearing clothes that were clean but worn. "Miss Torres, I'm Jennifer. I wanted to thank you. I've been here 2 weeks, and it's the first time in a year I've felt safe. The first time I've felt like maybe things could get better." Maya took her hand. "This stranger, who wasn't a stranger at all, they can get better. I promise you, they can." "How do you know?" "Because 5 years ago, I was exactly where you are, living in my car with my daughter, thinking we'd never get out. Then my grandfather gave me a gift, and I learned that sometimes the people who see you most clearly are the ones watching from a distance. He saw me, and now I see you, and I'm telling you this gets better if you let it." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't think anyone understood. I understand completely. That's why this place exists. Stay as long as you need. Learn what you need to learn. Build what you need to build. And when you're ready, when you're stable, maybe you'll help the next person who comes through that door feeling exactly like you feel right now." That evening, back in their house that no longer felt new, Maya opened Raphael's letter one more time. She'd read it hundreds of times, but the words never stopped meaning something. "Blood doesn't make family. Character does. Sophia found her mother in the living room, staring at the tool chest that had started everything. "You thinking about Abuelo?" "Yeah, thinking about how he was right about almost everything." "Almost?" "He said I'd know what to do with his gift, but I don't think he knew I'd understand why he gave it, why he built 43 houses for people who couldn't afford market rates, why he lived in a trailer while accumulating millions, why he chose patience over flash, substance over appearance." "You understand it now?" Maya pulled her daughter close, this brave, brilliant girl who'd survived poverty without letting it damage her capacity for kindness. "I understand that wealth isn't about the money itself. It's about what the money lets you do. Abuelo could have lived in a mansion, but he chose to live simply so he could help more people. He could have left us nothing, but he chose to give us everything so we could continue what he started. And are we continuing it? I mean," Maya gestured to the window, where city lights sprawled across the desert. Somewhere out there, 117 families were building futures because Rafael Torres had spent 30 years being patient. Because Maya Torres had learned to honor his legacy not by hoarding wealth, but by using it the way he'd used his skills generously, strategically, with an eye toward helping people who needed help. "Yeah, baby. I think we're doing exactly what he hoped we'd do. We found what he left. We understood why he left it. And we're proving every day that blood doesn't make family, character does. That's the real inheritance. The money just makes it possible." Sophia was quiet for a moment, processing wisdom beyond her years. Then she smiled, the expression so much like her mother's that Maya saw herself reflected in her daughter's face. "I think Abuelo knew you'd figure it out. That's why he trusted you with the tool chest. Because you were the kind of person who'd look for the hidden compartment, find what was inside, and use it to build something that would last." Maya looked at the tool chest one more time, at the dovetail joints that had held for 60 years, at the brass hardware that had survived decades, at the hidden compartment that had protected its secrets until the right person found them. Rafael Torres had built something that lasted, and now, 5 years after finding his gift, Maya knew she was building something that would last too. Not just for Sophia, not just for the 117 families they'd helped so far, but for all the families who would come after. For all the people who needed to know that poverty wasn't permanent, that struggle could end, that sometimes rarely, impossibly, beautifully, the right gift, given to the right person, at the right time, could change everything. The tool chest had contained more than money. It had contained proof that character mattered more than blood, that patience built wealth more effectively than greed, that seeing people clearly meant understanding what they needed rather than what they wanted. Rafael Torres had seen his granddaughter clearly from a distance, had understood her struggles, her strength, her worthiness, had built a gift that would test her, protect her, and ultimately transform her. And Maya Torres, 47 years old and no longer counting pennies, finally understood what her grandfather had known all along, that the best inheritances aren't measured in dollars, but in the lives they change and the legacies they continue. She closed the tool chest's lid gently, reverently, and smiled. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.